The operator's house sat at the top of the bridge, a lit glass box above the river, the warmest room for a mile. He'd been inside for 4 minutes. He'd locked the door behind him. He understands, now, what the locked door has done. He had thrown the bolt without thinking, the way you slam any door between yourself and a thing chasing you. Up the tower stairs, 2 steps ahead of the man from the waterfront, into the first room with a lock and the bolt under his hand, and thrown before he had even seen the room. Only now, with his back against the door and his breath sawing, does he take in where he is, a small glass house at the very top of the bridge, walls of window on every side, the black river laid out far below, and along one wall a control console, a long desk of levers and switches and dials, half of them lit, a bank of dark toggles, a squat marine radio hissing quietly on its shelf, the warmest, brightest, most watched room for a mile, and he has locked himself inside it, and locked someone out, because the operator is not in here. That is the thing that arrives last and worst. The room is running, the console lit, a coffee still steaming on the desk, the log open to today's date, but empty, which means the operator stepped out onto the catwalk that rings the house for the ordinary reasons a person steps out. And the door the boy threw the bolt on is the door the operator went through. And now there is a man locked out on a catwalk above a river, shut away from his own board, and a boy locked in at the controls of a machine he does not begin to understand. The boy had not seen him. That is the whole cruelty of it. He had come through the door and thrown the bolt in one blind motion of flight, eyes on the stairs behind him, and never once looked left to the catwalk where a man stood with a mug going cold in his hand, watching a stranger lock him out of 30 years of his own life. And the console is waking up on its own. A red light blooms on the panel, then another, then a whole row of them, and the marine radio breaks its hiss to speak. A voice, a tug captain somewhere downriver, calling the bridge by its name, calm and professional, and edged with the particular flatness of a man who has already committed to something he cannot undo, asking the operator to open the span for a tow that is already too close to stop. For a moment before the red lights, before the radio, there had been only the room and the strange gift of it. He had come up the bridge the way an animal goes up a tree, because the ground had become dangerous and up was the only direction left. It had started on the waterfront an hour before dark, a nothing thing, the way these things always start, a man who thought the boy was someone else, or had taken something, or simply needed a body to put a bad night onto, and would not be talked out of it. The boy knew the type from a year of the road. There is no reasoning with it. There is only distance. He had put distance between them, block by block, down to the river, out onto the closed approach of the bridge, where the pedestrian gate stood unlatched, and up the tower stairs, floor after floor, the man's boots ringing on the steel behind him, until the stairs ended at a landing and a door, and the door was open, and he had gone through it and thrown the bolt. And then, for 4 or 5 seconds, before the console woke, there had been peace. The glass house sat at the very top of the bridge, and its walls were all window. And beyond them, the whole river valley lay out in the last of the dusk, the water going from pewter to black, the town lights coming up along both banks, a barge running lights, sliding somewhere far downstream. It was warm. That was the thing that undid him most, standing there with his back to the bolted door and his heart slamming. It was warm, warmed by the machinery and the little electric heater under the desk. The warmest air he had stood in for weeks, and it smelled of coffee and hot dust and the particular clean oil smell of a room where careful work is done. There was a thermos. There was a logbook open, a fountain pen laid in the gutter of it. It was the room of a person who belonged somewhere, who had a chair that was his, and a night shift that would end with a drive home, and the boy stood in the middle of it, hunted and filthy and belonging nowhere, and felt for 4 or 5 seconds the enormous ache of a life with a shape to it. Then the first red light bloomed on the panel, and the piece was over, and the room stopped being a refuge and became a machine with a toe bearing down on it. The operator reaches him through the door, not with his fist. There is a single hard knock, and then nothing, no shouting, no rattling of the handle, and the boy understands from the silence that the man on the other side has taken 1 second to be furious and then set the fury down, because there is no time for it. When the voice comes through the door, it is level and low, and it does the only thing that can be done. It starts to teach. The operator tells him, through 2 inches of steel door and glass, that his name does not matter, and neither does why he ran up the stairs, that they will sort all of that later, that right now there is one fact that matters more than any other, and the boy needs to hold on to it. There is a tow on the river, a tug pushing a string of loaded barges, and it is inside the point where it can stop. A loaded tow does not have brakes. It is a 1/4 mile of steel and cargo carried forward by its own weight and the river's current, and to stop it, the tug would have to back down for a mile it does not have. The bridge is closed, the span down, the roadway carrying nothing at this hour but has to be lifted to let the tow through. And the tow is coming whether the bridge opens or not. If the span is down when the tow arrives, the barges hit it. And a loaded barge string hitting a lowered bridge is the kind of thing, the operator says, that they will be pulling out of the river for a week. The boy stands at the console with his hand still on the thrown bolt and understands the trap he has made. He could open the door. That is his whole instinct. Open it. Let the operator in. Let the man who knows the machine do the thing the machine needs. But the operator, reading the same thought through the door, tells him not to. There is no time. By the time the boy works the unfamiliar bolt and the operator crosses the room and takes the desk and runs the sequence cold, the tow will be on them. It is faster. It is the only thing fast enough for the boy to run the console himself right now, with the operator's voice in his ear through the door. He almost cannot do it, not the console, the trust. To put his hands on a machine he does not understand, 40 stories of consequence hanging under it, and move them only where a disembodied voice tells him to, is to hand himself over completely to a stranger, and handing himself over to anyone is the one thing a year on the road has trained out of him. But the voice does not ask for trust. It does not reassure, does not soften, does not waste a breath on the boy's fear. It simply names the next true thing, and then the next, in the flat, steady cadence of a man who has run this bridge 10,000 nights and knows it the way he knows his own hands. And there is something in that flatness the boy can lean on, precisely because it asks nothing of him but obedience to facts. He does not have to believe in himself. He only has to do the next named thing. That he can manage. That is smaller than believing. 2 strangers, then. 1 bolt between them. A tow in the dark. And a machine that has to open, worked by the wrong pair of hands under the right. Voice, listen to me. You're going to open my bridge. I'll tell you every switch. Don't touch anything I don't say. He had walked away from the army in the middle of his own discharge, and he had done it because he could not sit in the room. He lets the memory come even now, because his hands are shaking on the console, and the memory, strangely, is the thing that steadies them. It is the exact shape of the moment he is in, and he needs to not repeat it. There had been a night, overseas, near the end of his time, when something went wrong on a road in the dark. The details he keeps behind a door of his own, bolted, but the shape of it is this. There had been a moment when acting fast might have changed how it ended. And he had not acted. He had frozen. For 3 or 4 seconds that he has relived 10,000 times. With everything, depending on someone doing something, he had stood still, and the seconds had spent themselves, and by the time his body came back to him, the moment was over, and the cost was paid, and it was not his alone to pay, but he has carried it as if it were. They had not court-martialed him for it. It was not that kind of failure. It was the private kind, the kind no charge fits. But it had ended him quietly, the way the boarding school ends a boy, and the compound ends a believer. A slow administrative unwinding, a medical board, a discharge with a date on it. He remembers the waiting rooms of it more than anything. The endless carpeted waiting rooms where the army lets a man go. The plastic chairs, the forms, the fluorescent hum, the sense of being slowly signed away by people who were kind and busy and had many others to sign away that day. He remembers a counselor telling him, not unkindly, that what happened on the road happened to a lot of men, that the freezing was a thing the body did and not a thing he chose, that he should not carry it as a verdict on himself. He nodded. He had not believed a word of it, because he had been there in the 3 seconds, and he knew what he had felt, which was not the body seizing, but something worse. A clear, cold moment of himself simply not stepping forward, of watching the hinge of the thing swing and choosing, in some wordless place under thought, to stay still. And on the day the discharge came through, when he was supposed to sit in a room and sign the papers and be processed out clean, he had not been able to sit in the room. The room felt like the road. The stillness of it, the waiting, the sense of a moment happening to him that he was failing to act inside of. He had stood up and walked out of the discharge itself, unsigned, and kept walking, out the gate and down the year that followed, a man running from the memory of his own stillness, from the 3 seconds he did not move. He had told himself he was walking away from the army. He knew, underneath, that you cannot walk away from an army. You can only walk away from yourself and take yourself with you, which is the whole cruel joke of running. He has spent that year certain of one thing about himself, that when it matters, he freezes, that he is a man who, at the hinge of things, does not act. And now there is a toe in the dark, and a voice through a door, and a console full of red lights, and a moment that depends entirely on him doing something. The exact shape of the road, the exact test he failed. His hand is shaking on the first switch. The voice through the door says, "First one's the gates. The lever on your far left, all the way down. Do it now." He does it now. He does not freeze. That is the first thing, and he barely has time to notice it before the next thing. Down below, real, enormous. The traffic gates descend across the roadway with a 2-tone bell, barring a road no one is on, and a green light on the console goes dark, and a different light comes up, and the voice through the door says, "Good. That's good. Now the barrier gates," the switch beside it, and he throws that too. He notices it only in passing, the way you notice a thing about yourself, in the middle of doing something too urgent to stop and marvel, that his hand went to the lever and pulled it, without hesitation, the instant the voice named it. No stillness, no cold pull toward not moving. For a year he has been braced for the freeze, has arranged his whole life around the certainty that at the hinge he will not act. And here, at a hinge, with everything under him, he acted, and the acting was not even hard, because someone had broken the enormous impossible thing down into one small named switch and asked him only for that. He files the observation away without trusting it. One switch is not the road. He will believe the freeze is beaten when he has done the whole thing, and maybe not even then. But his hands keep moving, and the reds keep going green, and some cold thing that has sat in his chest for a year loosens by a single degree. He is running a movable bridge on a stranger's voice, and every step of the sequence is an interlock. The operator explains it in clipped pieces as they go, that the bridge will not let itself be opened wrong, that it is built so the span physically cannot lift until the gates are down and the locks are pulled. A chain of safeties, each of which must be satisfied before the next will arm, so that the red lights are not alarms exactly, but the bridge's own refusal, a list of conditions not yet met. Meet them in order, the voice says, and the reds go green, and the span will come. So he meets them in order. Gates. Barrier gates. Then the span locks, the great steel bars, the operator calls them the center locks, and the tail locks, that drive home to hold the two halves of the span rigid when the bridge is closed and carrying traffic, and that must be pulled back before the leaf can rise. He finds the lock levers where the voice tells him, and throws them, and hears and feels, far below, the heavy withdrawal of steel from steel, a deep clunk that travels up the whole tower into his boots. Another red goes green, and then he nearly ruins it. His eye catches a big obvious lever at the center of the desk, the most important-looking control on the whole console, and every instinct in him says, that is the one. That is the bridge. Pull it. The same instinct that wants to skip to the end of any hard thing, to act big instead of act right. And his hand is on it, and starting to move before the voice through the door, hearing the change in his breathing, or simply knowing the console better than he knows his own hands, snaps at him to stop. That is the drive, the operator says. Sharp for the first time. That is the leaf. Pull that now with the far lock still set. The boy had missed one, a second tail lock, a red he had read as green in his hurry, and you drive the whole span up against a bar that's still home, and you don't open my bridge, you break it, and then nothing opens it tonight, and that toe has nowhere to go. The boy takes his hand off the lever as if it were hot. He goes back and finds the missed lock, the small stubborn red he had skipped, and throws it properly, and feels the far bar withdraw, and only then is the drive truly free. The lesson lands in him harder than the danger. It is not enough to act. He has spent a year believing his failure was that he froze, that if he could only make himself move fast, move big, he would be redeemed. And here is the console teaching him. The opposite thing, that acting without reading the board is just a faster way to the same wreck, that courage is meeting the conditions in order, that the man who pulls the big lever too soon is no better than the man who cannot pull it at all. The radio speaks again, the tug captain, closer now, reading off his position, the flatness in his voice thinner, asking the bridge to confirm its opening, and the operator, through the door, tells the boy to key the radio and answer. Tell him the span is coming, tell him 30 seconds. The boy keys the marine radio, the way the voice tells him, and speaks to a captain on a dark river. The first words he has said to a stranger in longer than he can count, that were not an apology or a lie, and tells him the bridge is opening. Hold your course, 30 seconds. and the captain's voice comes back with something gone out of it, some tightness released, and says, "Only copy. Thank you, bridge." And the boy realizes his hands have stopped shaking entirely. The last interlock is the hard one, and it is where the toe nearly wins. Everything is green but one. A single stubborn red at the top of the panel, and the span will not lift while it burns. And the voice through the door goes quiet for a second too long, working out what the boy is seeing from the boy's clumsy description of it. And in that second, the radio crackles, and the tug captain says the thing no one wants to hear, that he's closer than he called, that the currents got him, that he needs the span up now. The boy reads the red light's little engraved label aloud through the door, and the operator swears, once, softly, and then explains, it is the span drive itself, the machinery brake, still set, and it will not release from the boy's console because the operator had it in hand mode when he stepped out. The final control is a two-part action. A safety against exactly this, a switch the boy can reach, and a key the operator carries on his belt, on the catwalk, on the wrong side of the door. For one long beat, the whole thing hangs on the bolt again. The radio fills the silence with the captain's voice, closer, tighter, the professional flatness finally cracking into something human, telling the bridge he is committed. He cannot back down. The span has to be up. Through the door, the operator is fast and level. He does not tell the boy what to do, because he has understood, in the space of the crisis, exactly who he is dealing with. A person who ran up a tower rather than face a man. A person for whom an unlocked door is not a small thing, but the whole thing, and he knows that ordering him will lose him. So he does not order. He simply says, quietly, that the key is on his belt, that the belt is on him, that he is on the other side of the door, and that the boy already knows what has to happen, and it is the boy's to decide. And there it is. The exact shape of the road, a hinge swinging, everything depending on him doing one thing, and the one thing is the hardest thing he owns. To open a door he locked, to let a stranger in, to stop hiding, to stay in the danger instead of the safety of the bolt. Every muscle he has spent a year training says keep it shut, stay small, stay hidden. A locked door has never once failed you. For half a second, the length of the 3 seconds on the road, compressed. He feels the old stillness rise in him, the cold, wordless pull toward not moving. He does not freeze. He crosses the room and throws the bolt. He opens the door he locked on purpose, choosing to stay in the danger instead of hiding from it. And the operator is through it in a stride, a big weathered man who does not waste a glance on the boy's face, who goes straight to the console and turns his key in the last lock as the boy holds the paired switch down and the final red goes green, and the operator's own hand closes over the drive lever and pulls, and far below, at last the great span begins to lift. The bridge opens, and the toe goes through. It takes perhaps 40 seconds, and they are the longest 40 seconds the boy has spent since a dark road overseas. And this time he spends every one of them moving, watching, present, not frozen, not fled, but here at the glass, inside the danger instead of running from it. They watch it together from the glass house, the operator at the console, and the boy standing back from it, the leaf rising up and away, the channel opening black and wide below, and the tug sliding its long lit string of barges through the gap, with the unhurried inevitability of a thing that was never going to stop. Close, closer than anyone would have liked, the near barge passing under the raised leaf with feet to spare that felt like inches. From up in the glass, the whole thing has a terrible slowness to it. the way disasters and near disasters both move slow when you are above them. The tow does not rush the gap, it arrives at it, enormous and patient, its running lights, green and red and white, sliding along the black water. The tug's engines, a low pulse, the boy can feel in the floor. For 3 or 4 seconds, the lead barge is directly beneath the rising leaf, and it is genuinely unclear, even to the operator, whether the span has come up far enough, a held breath, a hand hovering near a control that could do nothing useful now, if it were needed. And then the barge is under and through, and the margin that felt like inches resolves back into feet, and the string runs on out the far side of the channel and downriver into the dark, unharmed, unhurried, gone. The tug's horn gives one short, flat blast that means thank you in the only language the river keeps. The operator brings the span back down. Gates up, locks home, the reds and greens cycling back to their resting state. The bridge becoming a road again over an empty midnight river, as if nothing had happened at all. Then the room is quiet, and the two of them are alone in it, and the question of who the boy is comes back into the air. The operator does not ask it the way the boy braced for. He looks at the boy for a long moment. The state of him, the way he stands near the door, he can't stop being near, the shake that has come back into his hands, now that the doing is over. And there is nothing left to do but be looked at. And the operator asks only one thing: whether the man who chased him up the stairs is someone the boy needs help with, or someone the boy needs to get away from. It is a kind question, and a shrewd one, and the boy does not have an answer for it. Because the truth is, he does not entirely know who the man from the waterfront was. A dispute over nothing. A case of the wrong face, a violence that attached itself to him the way violence finds a person with no one to stand behind him. And the man is gone now, or seems to be, the stairs below silent. The threat that sent him bolting up into this dissolved into the ordinary dark the way such things do. The boy says, he'll be all right. The operator does not believe him, and does not push it, and pours a second coffee from the thermos and sets it on the desk near the boy without a word, the way you set food near a stray, no sudden movements. Then he does an unhurried thing that undoes the boy more than any question could. He goes back to his log and picks up his fountain pen and simply resumes his night. Enters the opening, the toe, the time, in his careful hand, as if the boy were not a problem to be solved, but a person who happened to be in the room, welcome to stay, welcome to go, owed nothing, watched over anyway. He talks a little, not at the boy but near him, the way a man talks to fill a room kindly. About the river, about the tows that run at night, about how in 30 years on the bridge he has learned that the water does not care how ready you are. It only cares whether you do the next right thing in the right order, and that most men who fail on the river fail not from cowardice, but from doing things out of turn. The boy drinks the coffee and listens and understands that he is being handed something, gently, without a price on it. A way of thinking about his own worst night that he had never been offered. That the failure on the road might not have been that he froze, but that no one, in that moment, had been there to name the next small switch. He does not say any of that. But he holds the warm cup in both hands and, for the length of it, lets himself be a person in a room with another person, which is a thing he has not allowed himself since a gate closed behind him a year ago. He does not stay long. He cannot. Staying is a muscle he has let go soft, and a warm room with a kind man in it is somehow harder to be in than a cold one alone. The longer he sits, the more the room's belonging presses on him. The log, the chair, the thermos, the whole shape of a life that has a place. And the more he feels the pull to break it before it can be taken from him, the way he has broken every soft thing this year rather than wait for the world to. So he sets the cup down while the setting down is still his choice. But he stays long enough to finish the coffee and long enough to do one thing he has never done anywhere he has hidden, in a whole year of leaving no trace. He takes out the Zippo, the lighter that came out of the service with him, the one thing he kept, engraved on its base with a unit and a set of numbers that are the only proof left in the world that he was once part of something, that there was a version of him who stood with other men and had a place in a line. It is worn smooth from a year of the same restless thumb. The finish rubbed to brass at the corners, the flint low. He has carried it through every cold room and every bad night, snapping it open and shut in the dark for the small mechanical comfort of a thing that works the same way every time. It is the last object that connects him to the person he was before the road, before the discharge, before the 3 seconds, and he turns it over in his fingers one last time, out of the old restless habit, feeling the engraving with the pad of his thumb, the way another man might tell beads. Then he sets it down on the console, beside the log, where the operator will find it. He cannot say exactly why. Part of it is thanks. For the coffee, for the not asking, for the door held open at the end instead of the questions. Part of it is a kind of confession he has no words for, that a man who froze once on a dark road did not freeze tonight, and needs there to be a witness to that somewhere in the world, needs one object to exist that says he was here and he acted, even if the person who finds it will never understand what it means. He has spent a year erasing himself from every room he passed through, sleeping without a trace, leaving no name, keeping the Zippo as the last private proof that he had ever been anyone at all. To set it down is to let that proof go. But he understands, turning it in the warm light of the glass house, that he does not need to carry the proof anymore, because tonight he made a new one, live in front of a witness, a 90-second proof written in gates and locks and a thrown bolt, and a man who saw it. He can leave the old proof behind now. He has a better one, and he cannot take it with him, and that is all right. Then he goes, down the tower stairs, into the dark, past the empty landing where a man once chased him, onto the approach where the gates stand up again, and the river runs on, below the closed span, unmarked, ordinary, saved. The night air is cold after the warm room, and he pulls his coat close and does not look back, because looking back is a way of asking to stay, and he has not earned the trick of staying yet. That is a thing he will have to learn somewhere, later, the way he learned tonight that he can move when it matters. Behind him, up in the lit glass house, the operator finds the lighter on the console beside the log. He turns it over. He reads the engraving, a unit, a set of numbers, and he stands a while at the window with it in his hand, looking down at the dark approach where a figure is walking away along the river road, and then down at the numbers again, the way a person looks at a thread he has half a mind to pull. He does not call out. He does not follow. But he sets the lighter carefully in the drawer where he keeps the things that matter. And he writes something in the log that is not about the bridge, and the next morning, when his shift ends, he will begin, quietly, the way careful men begin things, to find out whose unit it was, and whose numbers, and whether there is anyone still looking, somewhere, for the boy who opened his bridge and would not leave a name, but could not quite leave nothing.